Hello, everybody, and welcome to How to Use Marketing to Recover and Thrive in the New Normal. My name is Don Osborn, and I'm going to be presenting this webinar today, so thank you for joining us. And thank you to Grow Nebraska for making this all happen. So I'm going to start by saying that I am on a mission. I'm an optimist by nature, and I strongly believe that this crisis we're living through will result ultimately in a great cultural awakening, and that will lead to things being better than ever before. But between now and then, we have some work to do. And that work includes getting our businesses up to speed for the new normal and embracing online business methods more than ever. My goal here is to help as many people and businesses as possible in using all available tools and strategies to survive and thrive, to build bright futures for our families and to reinvigorate our communities. So let's get going. To start with, I'd like everyone to go to my website, dbodigitalmarketing.com/webinar. And there you can, there's an opt-in form, and I invite you to do that. And in doing so, you'll get a link to a downloadable sheet called Marketing Tool Inventory Worksheet. This will allow you to get a great checklist. We won't have time in this program to go through every item of the checklist, but I'll talk a little about the main headings, and this will be a really valuable thing for you to do once this webinar is finished. So please do that. Full disclosure, by opting in, you will be adding yourself to my mailing list, and you'll get a few emails. So also you can opt out at any time. So I hope you do that. And today, we're going to look at marketing plans, marketing tools, and marketing systems. Remember, these are all things designed to help you reinvigorate your business and move forward. So we're going to start with a marketing plan. Here's the overview of what a marketing plan looks like. This includes all of the traditional elements that you would find, including print, radio, and the like, but it also includes CRMs, contact relationship management systems, lead capture, lead nurturing, closing, all those kinds of things. So we're going to look at each one of these categories in detail here. We're going to start with the target market. You need to know exactly whose problems are you solving. Remember, we're in business to solve somebody's problems, right? And it's best if you solve a problem for the minimum viable audience. Okay, we're going to start with your target market. And this is where we look at whose problem do we actually solve. We're in business to solve somebody's problem, right? And the goal is to have the minimum viable audience as your target audience. So, you know, a lot of people, when asked who's your audience, and they say, well, everybody could use our product or service. But that doesn't work. What works far better is to isolate the smallest group you can in terms of who needs your audience. The better you can focus on a smaller group, the better success you'll have. And that often overlaps into a broader market anyway. But if you make it just perfect for a certain group, then you're gonna be better than trying to please everybody. Obviously, with the target market, we're going to look at demographics. That is, you know, the age, the gender, the location, all of those obvious things. But then we also need to look at psychographics, which are more having to do with behavior, where people hang out, what keeps them awake at night, you know, what motivates them, that sort of thing. Next is the messaging, and this is fairly obvious, but you need to determine how you tell your story. What is your story? And also language. What language do you use? It's got to be specific for your target audience. What I encourage people to do is to pre-write all of their company bios, their personnel bios, company descriptions, mission statements, product and service descriptions. If you set aside a weekend or even, you know, a corporate retreat, or just assign one person for a couple of days to write all these things, it comes off much better. It's more consistent. You want, when you look at a website, you want your company description to be consistent with what you have on Facebook or LinkedIn, that sort of thing. We also talk about elevator speeches and value propositions. The value proposition is really a good definition of what value do you bring to your customers. And then, of course, the elevator speech, it's this basic format. I like this one the best. So, describe the problem. Well, what we do is describe your solution. And in fact, offer proof of how that works. To give you an example of that, here's mine. You know how the quarantine has forced small businesses to rethink their business and move more online? Well, what we do is help people move more of their business online and get really organized. In fact, we're offering free webinars around the country to show folks the basics of how to do this. So the next section in the marketing plan is the media. And this is where you determine what media you use to reach the right audience, whether it be traditional or digital. This can include, print, radio, TV, social media, all of those vehicles that get your message in front of your target audience. We'll get more into some of these things. For example, with digital, you've got, of course, all of your social media, ads, boosts, posts, pay-per-click, webinars. Content marketing includes email, blogs, video. This can also include geofencing. And there's all kinds of remarkable technologies out there. Of course, this all falls under your digital media. Also, this plan needs to include how you're going to handle traditional media. And we list everything here, but that's not to say you need everything. You certainly don't. But on the traditional media side of things, obviously you have radio, print, TV, outdoors, direct mail, trade shows, and even direct sales calls. Now, one thing to note, direct mail is actually not as archaic as some people might think. More people open their direct mail these days because they're just not getting that much mail. So when something shows up in a what they call lumpy mail, a package with a little trinket in it, they're curious and they're more apt to open it up. So the question then comes down to how do you select the right media? And the question to answer is, where does your target customer spend time? Do they hang out on Facebook? Do they read the newspaper? Do they go to county fairs? Do they go to trade shows? Now, generally, it's a combination of a number of these things, but is it whatever media or medias you select, are they an efficient way to reach people? Now, for example, look at newspapers. They hit a very broad target audience. It's a real shotgun approach. And if you place an ad in the newspaper, you are basically got your fingers crossed, hoping that some of those people in your target audience might happen to see a newspaper. Compare that to doing a Facebook ad where you've targeted exactly your customers, their age, their gender, their education level, the kinds of magazines they read, the stuff they're interested in, the pages they follow. You can see that some of those digital methods are way more effective than the newspaper. And on the other hand, depending on your target audience, for example, older folks read the newspaper and they don't do social media maybe quite as much. So you do need to give this some thought and come up with the right media mix of how to get your message in front of people. Now, one of the best ways to do this, if you can, sometimes it's tricky, but it's great to determine what your return on investment is for your advertising. And this is basically where you look at the cost of the ad, and then you look at the sales generated by that ad, and you also look at the lifetime value of a customer and see if you're coming out ahead. So, a simple example is if you spend $1,000 on newspaper ads and nobody buys what's on special or what's listed in the ad, then it didn't really make sense. Compare that to spending $500 on a Facebook ad and tracking sales of $1,200. Well, there's a good excuse to do that again. That's pretty good. Now, it's not always just about the actual sale that's generated. Consider, and you might want to calculate this, what the lifetime value of your customer is. You know, they might buy a $50 product right now, but is there a subscription rate? Is there an upsell down the road? Is there maintenance contracts involved? Will they need to buy another one when it wears out? It's always cheaper to keep an existing customer rather than to find a new customer. So those are important numbers to know. Next, now we're going to talk about lead capture. We live in a digital world, and as such, everybody's got almost everybody, 99% of everybody has an email address, and many times that's the best way to get a hold of people. But how do you manage that? You know, some people just have a big list of spreadsheets. They've got a bunch of emails in their phone, and that's not very useful or not very efficient anyway. So what you want is a CRM, a contact relationship management program. And you've heard of these, you know, Salesforce, Insightly, you know, there's dozens of these. Some are very simple, some are very complicated. But it's important that based on the size of your organization and the people that are doing sales, you need to have some kind of basic lead capture, because every time you get those emails, you've got to have some way to store them and some easy way to actually use them. So let's talk about how you use them. So you've got your CRM, that's your software program that lives in the office computer. You put your current customers in it, your new customers, your purchased lists, your you know, other business cards that you get at trade shows, you know, people that opt in on your website. All of this information goes into your CRM. Also, when people opt in for your website, they go into your email program, and that email program generally is interfaced with your CRM as well. Now, different industries have sometimes a very specific CRMs for that industry, you know, that they customize for what you're doing, and a lot of times that'll make sense. Other times you might want to use just, you know, some basic tools. If you're looking for a CRM, Google CRM and look at the reviews, look at the cost per month, and read the reviews. Some of these are really unwieldy and wildly complicated, and you know, I've had clients that spent a ton of money buying one and only to dump it a year later because it was too complicated to use. It's important that you keep an eye on that. Now, once you have all of this information in your system, you can do all kinds of things with it. There's your direct mail campaigns, email campaigns, direct sales, phone numbers. These are where you dial the number, you talk to somebody, and you make notes to keep that in the database, in the CRM. And then the next time you're on the phone, you know what the conversation was and where everything is. Also, when people opt in on your website, typically they'll trigger, or they should trigger, some kind of opt-in email sequence. So just to let you know, when you opt in on my newsletter, that triggers a series of 5 or 6 short notes telling you about some different things that I'm doing. So I don't have to manually enter anything. I don't have to manually email anything. This sequence all goes out. Now, you want to be careful not to bother people. I mean, you don't want to send them junk. You want to send them something useful, or at least that's short and sweet. Because if you bombard them with a bunch of stuff, they'll opt out for sure. So on that note, let's talk about lead nurturing. So you've got, you know who your audience is, what the message is, what medium you're using, and you've got a CRM. Now what do you do with all that information? Well, you nurture the lead. It might be direct mail. It might be an automated email drip campaign that we just mentioned. Maybe it's a newsletter, periodic emails, you know, telling about your specials. Maybe it's a Christmas card, a 4th of July message, or even direct sales. But somehow you need to nurture that lead. We are in the day and age where, you know, people do business this way, especially when there's a pandemic. They're used to communicating using technology, using phones, using texts, whatever. And So you need to be actively engaged in using that technology to reach out to your people. Next is closing. How do you close? The old way is, you put the message out there and hope that people will know what to do and hope that they'll call or stop by or maybe buy something. Well, what we've found, or what I've discovered through reading a lot of books, is the notion of how effective a sales script is. And there's very much some great methods to walk people down the garden path around a sales script, finding out what their problems are, educating them, and then giving them a little nudge to make a decision. And on the telephone, a sales script is pretty awesome. On a website, what you use is a call to action. And basically on the website, you want to tell people what to do. Tell them where they are, what they need to do next, buy now, or find out more information, or visit the store, whatever it may be. But it's important to have some kind of system to close sales, encouraging people to purchase, or let them know what's going on. And the more you can systematize this kind of thing, the better off you are. You might have 3 people in sales. One's just that natural sales person who can talk all day and can make it all work, but not everybody has that skill. And it is a skill that can be developed, but the better your sales scripts are, the more you'll develop your sales staff. So, a lot of people, say, yeah, we offer world-class service. And, my question is always, how do you know it's world-class? How do you know it's the best? And do you have a system? Is it duplicatable? And is it consistent? So for delivery, whatever you're delivering, whether it's you're selling mattresses or software programs or anything else, you need to have some kind of system for delivering whatever it is you're selling. And it can be as simple as a simple checklist. The guy in the loading bay has a checklist of everything that needs to go on the truck. Or, when you're fulfilling orders in the mailroom, or when you're on the phone if you're a consultant looking after somebody's problem. Also, it needs to match the marketing promise. What's a marketing promise? That's basically the promise you're making when people start looking at your materials. You're making a promise to solve some problem for them, whether it's providing them with a service or some kind of product. And so you want to look at, does your delivery of your product or service match the rest of your marketing literature? And then also, is it measurable? Do you know exactly how everything went? 2 weeks from now, somebody calls up and says, hey, I ordered this thing and you left out, part of some of the parts. Do you have a way to track all of those things? And if you don't, you should, because this is very important. So we talked earlier about how it's less expensive to keep a customer rather than get a new one. And this is where we talk about increasing the customer value. So that might be an upsell, might be maintenance contracts, subscriptions, upgrades. These are all things that you can systematize. And what do I mean by that? It's basically create a system so if somebody buys a product, you can have an automated email that goes out 3 weeks later saying, hey, hope everything's okay. Did you know we've got a couple of add-ons that'll make it even better? Whatever it might be. It's important to have some kind of system to increase the customer value. And then finally, how do you get referrals? Referrals, of course, a happy customer is your best salesperson. That's what some people say, and I'm inclined to agree with it. And it's important to have a system for this. Now, again, when they've just made the purchase and they're beaming from ear to ear, that's the time to ask for, say, a Google My Business review or a Yelp review, or even a written review that you can put on your website. But these referrals can show up in scripts, in automation. Somehow you need to find a way to systematize it. It might be as simple as when you're fulfilling the order, maybe there's a box to check for the person handling that account just ask for a referral. A lot of the old multi-level marketing strategies were at the end of their presentation, they'd always sit down and say, okay, I want you to give me a list of 10 friends that might like this. That's a little heavy-handed, admittedly, but the concept is solid. If you ask for referrals, it's a lot of times you get them. So all of this information needs to go into a marketing binder. At the end of the day, you need to have all this information gathered in one place that's right at your fingertips. So when you go to that Monday morning staff meeting and the boss asks you marketing questions, you've got it all there. Also, and this marketing binder, not a bad idea to have it as an actual physical binder, but also a digital file, and even better yet, something shared on Google Drive so that it's accessible to other people in the company. And this is where you keep track of everything, your definitions of who your target audience is, your messaging, all of that, that weekend's worth of bios and product descriptions and everything. And also, whenever you go to a media outlet, they'll usually give you, a map outlining, what their reach is and all that sort of thing. This is where you'd also keep your master contact list. Imagine your marketing person has got this whole system laid out, and then they decide to leave, or something happens to them. The new person coming in ideally will be able to pick up that binder and know exactly what's going on and have access to everything, including master contact list, your list of radio station reps and their phone numbers and all that sort of thing. Also, this is where you keep notes and instructions for all these technical things. The lead capture, the CRM, there's going to be an instruction sheet for that most likely, because some of them can get complicated. Same with lead nurturing, notes and instructions for email campaigns, your strategies, your actual written copy, all that kind of stuff. And then, of course, closing scripts, notes and details. Same with delivery, all of your notes and instructions for increased customer value, all the details there, and referrals. That all kind of goes without saying. What you also want to include, though, are the reports. So if you're looking at this year to year, month to month, it's great to have everything in one place. You can see, well, last April we did this, and then the most recent April we did this, and there's a big difference. Why was there a big difference? Same with other bits of information. Your marketing budget. It's a great way to start this is by gathering up the historical budget for the last couple of years. Not everybody keeps this budget, but it's pretty important to have, so that when you're deciding what to spend money on the next year, you actually have some kind of yardstick. A quick note on that. I think marketing budgets are important, but I think it's even more important to measure your return on investment for all your advertising, and then move forward based on that. So many people spend money just because that's how we've always done it. But let's face it, if you're spending huge amounts of money, say on a newspaper ad that's not delivering any sales, it just doesn't make sense to continue with it. The notion of putting ads out just for branding purposes are pretty obsolete. Unless you're Coke and Pepsi and Budweiser, the current thinking is that that's just a waste of time. Putting that same money into social media presence or some of the digital stuff might be money way better spent. Now, that's not to say digital is the be-all end-all, because there are places for newspapers and radio and all the traditional things as well. But don't spend the money just because it's in the marketing budget. Spend it because it works. Next, this is where we put your operations plan in, and this is a comprehensive list of every task that needs to happen around your marketing. And then you take each task, figure out who's going to do it, how often do they do it, who do they report to, and is there is there a budget involved? And then everybody takes that master list and puts their portion of it in their calendar. So, Tuesday pops up and I know that I've got these 3 items I have to do. I've got to do a Facebook post, I've got to, finish a radio spot, and I've got to update, orders for logo t-shirts, that sort of thing. Also, it's important to have a marketing calendar. Every month, typically, you're going to have a different product that you're going to feature. There'll be different things going on seasonally. Maybe you sell a lot of stuff at Christmas. Maybe summer is your high tourist season. Whatever it is, you want to coordinate what you're selling and how you're selling it with the calendar. And so that might include trade shows. It might include specials or something related to school calendars, football games. And if you have a marketing calendar that's pre-planned and that you follow every year, then when it's time to develop content, say for radio spots, you can go, well, it's October. In October, we're going to feature this certain product, and we're going to use these different outlets as media outlets. And then this is going to be our messaging. So that way, your messaging is the same for every media that you use. This is also where you can keep your schedule of progress on things. Let's say you're doing a website overhaul, and the boss asks you how it's going. You've got all that stuff right at your fingertips. So earlier I asked you to download a checklist for Marketing Toolbox inventory. Now, we don't really have time today to go through that in detail. So what I would ask you to do is bring that sheet up, go ahead and print it, and remember it's at dbodigitalmarketing.com. One of the tabs in the nav bar is for webinar. So click on that, opt in, you'll get the marketing tool checklist, and I guarantee it will bring up some things that you probably have not thought of. Here are the main headings. Now with this checklist, it's designed as a do-it-yourself kind of thing. So I'm not trying to teach you how to be a web developer or getting too much in the weeds, but these are tools that most businesses need. And with some of these, I've got a checklist to where you can go to your provider. If you've got a webmaster somewhere, you can do some checking and testing on your own, and then you can kind of check their work and make sure everything is where it should be. So we start with branding. Obviously, that's logos. Do you have emails using your company web address versus Hotmail? Do you have files, different files of all of your logos, different sized files for different things? Having all this stuff in one place makes it so much easier. Let's say you need to order a big banner at the county fair. You can't send a small JPEG file of your logo. It just won't work. You need to have a vector file that can, expand up to 20 feet by 4 feet kind of thing. So there's a number of branding things on there. Next is the website section. And this includes, again, you're not being a webmaster here, but you want to make sure you have all this information. Do you know where your site is hosted? Do you have access to those passwords? Do you have a favicon? Do you have any broken links? Is the website speed up to par? There are a couple of links down below that will show you some free sites where you can go to test the speed, for example, or test for broken links. But this is just kind of a basic overview. A couple of things you need to have. You need to be able to click on the top left logo and go back to the home page, for example. You need a clickable phone number near the top so that when somebody's on their mobile device, they can just click the button and call you. So that's an important one to look over. Next is the CRM, the Contact Relationship Manager section. And this is basically, do you have one? And if you don't have one, do you plan on getting one? And if you do have one, do you use it? This is more, again, we're just checking to see if you've got all the tools. Next is the email marketing Maybe use MailChimp or Constant Contact or Infusionsoft, or there's a bunch of them. But the question is, do you have a system? And if you do have it, do you use it? Next is local search. Local search, the big player there is Google My Business. And when you search for something, what shows up, let's say you're a plumbing company and you put in plumbing, you're going to get some paid ads near the top. Then you get a 3-pack of the Google My Business, the maps, and that's what we're talking about here. Below that is the organic SEO, the organic websites that show up. But if your target audience is just within 100 miles of where you're located, local search is going to be the best one for you, and it's important to put some effort into that. First, you've got to make sure that you claim the listing. They're free, and chances are, if you haven't claimed it, there's probably one there for you. So you need to claim it, and you need to go through a few steps to update it, add your hours, add a bunch of pictures, your logo. Now, there are some sophisticated ways to make sure you rank in the top 3, and that is a service I provide. And you could also go online and Google. There's a ton of free information about how to get your local search sorted out. Now, if your target audience is outside of your local area, SEO is going to become very important. And that's where your website is optimized so that it will show up when somebody searches a term. So ideally, if you're in Nebraska and you want to get found, somebody in North Dakota could put in a certain term, and then you would show up on that first page of Google as an organic website. That's the goal. Now, SEO is pretty complicated, and there are a lot of good ways and some bad ways to do this. If you use the bad ways, you'll get suspended from Google, and so don't try any hacks or any of the black hat stuff that's out there. My recommendation is that you either dedicate somebody in your business to really do a deep dive in this and learn how to do it, or hire a professional to do it. Again, this is something that we provide, and this is a little unusual, but we offer guarantees for search engine optimization. So there'll be more information later to find out how to find out more about this. Next is social media. Do you have the Facebook pages, the LinkedIn profiles? Do you use these things? And if you don't, you should. You should certainly have at least Facebook and LinkedIn. Depending on the nature of your business, Instagram can be huge. Depending on where you live, Twitter can be really big. Now, I find certainly in smaller communities in the Midwest, not so much. But if you had, like a fashion-related business on the coast or in Phoenix or something, Santa Fe, this might be something that you really need. Next, we'll have a checklist about digital advertising. Might be Facebook ads or some of the other things. And also a checklist on traditional advertising. One of the questions will be if you work on annual contracts. And if you don't, you definitely should. There's a lot of good reasons for this. The first one is that it's going to be cheaper. And if you pre-buy these things, then it gives you a fixed budget that you can count on. If you buy things ad hoc, month to month, it's going to cost quite a bit more. Finally, do you have a marketing plan, and are you using it? Maybe the fact that you're here, maybe you don't. I don't know. But if you don't have one, you certainly should have, and it will make a huge difference in your business. Quick aside, that's a product that we do. We provide that service for people developing comprehensive marketing plans. And then finally, reporting and management. And this is, once you've done all this other stuff, this is how you can tell it's working, right, is your reporting and management. So we've got the marketing plan. This is what to do. You've got the operations plan, how to do it. And then you've got the reporting, which is how well it worked. So let's look a little at the reporting. It's important to know, again, we talked a little about, you're at the Monday morning meeting, and there are things that you'd want to include in that report: your marketing upgrades, media activity and metrics, budget report, database report. Have you increased, decreased? Are people opting out? That sort of thing. Sales reports, like that's your real bottom line. You know, how many sales? How much money are we making in the upcoming events and campaigns? Now with digital activities, there's so much information available, and it can be like looking at an encyclopedia. But you know, if you set it up smartly, it's pretty straight ahead, and you can make decisions based on it. Your ranking, your social media activity, social media reviews, citations are one of the elements that are used to increase your rankings on Google My Business. So you want to make sure you've got citations, which are third-party business listings, and there's a specific way to do that. So if that's something you want to pursue, I'd suggest Googling the best way to do citations, or of course you could call me. Finally, you've got Google My Business and Google Analytics. So we'll look a little closer at these things. I have a marketing or a reporting service that I provide for clients, and it tells what your Google rankings are, and then it'll also talk about your reputation management, new reviews, positive reviews, how many star ratings are you getting, which review sites are you on that sort of thing. This is the citations I mentioned. The service I use, there's about 100 recommendations that they make, and then they see for whichever industry you're in, do you have those citations listed. And with citations, the more the better. If you want to rank above your competitor, get more citations. That's a big part of it. This is what the Google My Business analytics looks like, and you can see this right on your Google My Business management dashboard, which you have access to if you can access your Google My Business. And you can see how many people went to your website, how many looked for requested directions, or how many people called you. And then with the customer searches, you can see the green part of the circle. That's people using Google as a yellow pages, basically, and which a lot of people do, and that's fine. The better part is discovery. So people didn't put Bob's Plumbing, they put in plumbing, and Bob showed up. That's the discovery. So that's what you want. You want to be preaching to people who are not in the choir, so to speak, to attract some new business. Google Analytics is simply a measurement of how many people visited your website over time, and that's pretty important. And you can see when you do a Facebook activity, usually that will coincide with a big jump in your website activity. And so all of a sudden, instead of just theoretically thinking that, well, a Facebook post might be a good thing, you can see some tangible results in that. Of course, with Facebook, you can track and measure everything. So you can see all the different Facebook posts or ads, and how far the reach was, how many people engaged with it, how many people forwarded on to somebody else. That's one of the beauties of digital marketing. So we've covered a lot of ground here. I know that there's kind of a lot to dig into here, and I'd like to help. And there are two ways that I can help. Through my website, I offer two things. One is a do-it-yourself training, which is an in-depth marketing course to walk you through all the steps to actually put all of this we've discussed here, all of this and quite a lot more into your business. And it's great for an owner, for a marketing manager, or even an intern. Some of these things are a little technical. Most of it is not. And so with this kind of training, I suggest people learn how to do most of it themselves, and then there's some odds and ends that you want to hire professionals to do. The other way I can help is my Done For You services. And this involves higher end websites, national SEO, franchise SEO, Google AdWords, and a number of other things. And we do offer some guarantees for SEO, which is pretty unusual. So here's how it works. I invite you to go to my site and have a look at the training program or the marketing services. There's quite a bit of information on there in terms of what we offer and how we do things. And then if you're interested in finding out some more, well, certainly none of this is cookie cutter. Every business is a little bit different, right? So I invite people to book a strategy session with me. And on this call, we talk about what you're doing, what you want to do, and some of the best ways for you to move ahead. And then finally, if it's a good fit, we look at doing some work together. If it's not a good fit, that's fine. That's no problem. Either way, you're going to get some great information, and you've also got a great forum to to ask questions and learn some things. So that's it. I hope you found this useful. We are going to move now to the Q&A portion of things. Looks like we'll have maybe 15 minutes or so to get into some things. So I invite you to put questions in, and here's to your success.